Well, this is what was holding up the stick pen project. This little tiny mandrel. It's made especially for the stick pen. Screws into this brass tube. I'll show you. Now you should recall from video 1, I drilled a 1/4-inch hole in this blank. Now the idea is that you take the little brass tube and glue it into the blank. Then after it's glued into the blank, you mount it or screw it onto the mandrel. Okay? And then you mount this end in the chuck in the lathe. And, well, you're going to see. Now I just want to rough this a little, make the glue stick a little better. Now this little spring has to drop into that hole before I glue this brass tube in place. Now if you remember back in video 1, I was indicating that I might have to drill this hole a little deeper. Well, I think I will, because if I put this in here like this, even without the spring, you can see that it's pushing the nib out and there just won't be room for the spring. So I'm going to have to go maybe another almost 1/4 of an inch deeper. Now my extra long drill bit is still set up the way it was. So I'm just going to make a little mark here. And then I'll bring this stop back to this mark. And I think that'll be just about right. Okay, we'll try that. I was going to mount this back into the lathe, but then I'd have to change this chuck again. So I thought, well, let's just do it the easy way. I think that's perfect. Now when I glue this on, there's a chance that I'm going to have it a little bit off center because there's a little bit of play there. So what I'm going to do is, after I get the glue on, I'm going to move the tailstock up and just make sure that everything is in straight line so that when it turns, it's not going to wobble. Okay, I'll just let that set for a bit, like about an hour, and then hopefully I'm going to be able to unscrew this. Well, once again it's the next morning, so obviously more than 1 hour has passed. And we'll just check this out and see what we got here now. And I'm a little bit concerned that possibly that CA glue might have seeped down and got into the threads. Well, we'll soon know. And oh, that wasn't tight at all. Well, the little bushing did adhere to the end of the brass tube. It's amazing how well that CA glue works. There we go. Now all I have to do is just slightly trim that down so it's nice and flush here. I think I'll sand it. Well, you can see the brass tube is protruding just very, very slightly. So I don't have to sand it down too much. And if I do sand it down too much, then the cartridge isn't going to fit in the hole anymore, because I can't remove that spring to drill the hole any deeper. So I'm going to go just down until the sanding belt just starts to touch the mahogany here. Well, I think that's pretty well got it. I am noticing, however, that there appears to be a little bit of a gap. In other words, the brass tube is just a little bit too small for that hole. Now I'm going to want to be careful I don't tighten this up too much, because it would be quite easy to strip the threads on this little mandrel. Well, actually the threads wouldn't strip on the mandrel, the threads would strip inside on the brass tube. And then this whole thing would be useless. And also I want to be careful that I don't tighten this up too tight. All it has to do is be tight enough just to steady it so it doesn't chatter. Now naturally I can't tell how far back this hole goes because I can't see it, but I know that the spring is probably right here. So that means they're probably going to want to have the very end of the pen about here. And also I want to be sure that when I'm turning it down that I don't make it too small, because just in case that 1/4 inch hole is just slightly oblong in there, I don't want to accidentally cut right through, especially where the joints are. I'm just using my parting tool here to indicate where the end of the pen should be, because once I start working with the scraper, that mark that I made is going to disappear. Now if I had been smart, I would have mounted that little mandrel further out on the chuck, and that way I wouldn't have to use the narrow scraper here. Oh well, next time. Now I think the best time to round this end off is probably while it's still attached here, and then part it off carefully afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this down as small as I can, and then sand it with fine grain, and then carefully part it off. We'll see what happens. You know what? Rather than use the parting tool, I'm just going to cut that off with my little saw here. I'm going to leave this little piece sticking out and just carefully round it later. See what happens here. Very carefully here. Whoops. These sharp teeth here, they... You know what? I might end up being better off using the parting tool, because this is not working. Well, I guess I could always sand this down. I can either sand it rounded or I can leave it pointy. I don't know. Maybe I better sand it off and make it rounded. Now I don't know if you noticed it. Well, you probably did. But after I parted this off, boy, this thing was really off center. Now, to me, that's really mind-boggling. I can't figure out why that would be, because when I glued it on, I had it in a nice straight center line. Now that's really strange. Look at that. It shouldn't be like that, but it is. It's going to make it hard to sand now. Well, I guess not sand, but it's definitely going to make it a lot harder to put the wax on. Well, just have to do the best I can. And Lee Valley said that this was an easy pen. Come on. Well, I'm not going to bother with my dust collector. I don't think I'm going to be creating too much dust here. Well, clearly I did something wrong. And to think I bought more than one set of these pens. In fact, I'm not going to tell you how many sets I bought. I got a lifetime supply. Well, maybe not that much. Well, see what we can do here. Now this is 800 grit sandpaper. It's kind of rough. I think I better slow it down because I think what's happening is the high spot is throwing my finger away, and when I get to where there would be a low spot, my finger's not there, so this might actually do a better job, even though the sanding process would probably take 10 times as long. I'm going to do another one of these. I won't bore you with it, but I'm going to just experiment with it and see if I can't maybe have better luck. I'm not complaining, but I find that I can do these pens about 10 times faster if I'm not videoing it, because I'm not fooling around setting the camera, and although I guess that's part of the fun. I think I got the wax built up too much here. That's the problem. I'm going to try a different kind. And I'm not going to put it on real thick. Yeah, maybe that's where I went wrong. Maybe I just put it on too thick last time. Okay, let's have a little look here. Yeah, that looks better. I'm a little bit encouraged now. Well, you know, I'm really big on being honest with my videos. When I tried to unscrew this off of here, the glue let go. The brass tube is still stuck in the lathe. Okay, once again, it may look like the lathe is turning this way, but it's actually turning this way. I'm going to try and wind this piece of paper up on this brass tube here. And hopefully I'm not going to squash that tube. It doesn't want to come. Now why is that on there so tight? I could understand it if the CA glue was in there, but there's no CA glue in there. Maybe if I wrap some rubber around it. Okay, here's a piece of inner tube from a wheelbarrow inner tube. Yeah, got it that time. Man, oh man. Well, this brass tube already is fitting fairly snugly in there, so I'm not going to need a whole lot. I'm just going to put a little bit in here and make sure I don't put the threaded end in first. Okay. Now hopefully that's going to set up just nice. Okay, a little bit of time has passed. Well, there we have it, folks. The stick pen. Must be a little tiny knot trying to grow there. That kind of gives it character. You know, that's not half bad. Well, I got 3 more blanks that I can practice on. This is my very first one, by the way. Very first stick pen, that is. That won't be my last. And that's because I've got a bunch of other kits. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. And thank you for watching. Yeah, that doesn't look half bad.